speak, let's talk to Dan Hodges, who is, of course, a commentator at the Mail on Sunday. Big piece today saying the U-turn is becoming Starmer's defining feature. Dan, a very good morning to you.
Morning.
Now, before we get going, we've got a little gift for you. And this wasn't my idea, before you give me a hard time. We've had a look back at some of the things that you've been saying about this government since the beginning, right? Following the horrendous record of Keir Starmer. Even I haven't seen this, so we're just going to play it out now and have a look, see what we get.
Well, you didn't like it when we started off, but as you can see, what we're doing is starting to work. I mean, let's just wait and see. I mean, if you remember last time I was on, I think it was before the budget, and I was saying to you, let's just be a little bit careful here. Some of the polls show them relatively stable. I think there was a poll over the weekend that actually showed Labour moving up.
I've been getting calls from people since last Wednesday who have been telling me that they're now in a very, very bad place, particularly independent traders, people who run small businesses in this country, who are the backbone of this country, and many of them don't work for big companies, don't work for the public sector, don't get a pay slip, but do work bloody hard for their money, who are now going to be worse off. And those are the people that they should worry about.
Well, we'll see, as I said, we'll see. So in the short term, we could actually see a bit of growth coming out of this budget.
But anyway,
let's just wait and see where it goes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I think that's
with great respect to people calling in, we're not seeing that at the moment in the opinion polls, and that's not the feedback I'm getting from people in Westminster. Whatever you think about the Labour Party, as a rule, its MPs are not roaming the country punching their own constituents. So we've got to be clear about that.
Well, that's good. So you found a sort of chink of light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, there's so much in there, but it's been a bit of a roller coaster year, hasn't it? And now here we are. You're writing about Keir Starmer pretty much every week, saying how useless he is.
Yeah, I mean, like you saw. I mean, I've tried to give Keir Starmer and the government a chance, and I'll still try and give them a chance. I mean, they've only been in power for a year, but what can you say? What can you say? I mean, again, here we are this morning. As you said, I've got another piece in the Daily today. And again, I seem to say this every week I come on. I just don't know what Keir Starmer thinks he's doing.
No,
I don't know what he thinks he's doing with this whole recognition of Palestine policy, where, as just about everybody is pointing out, it's a policy that literally rewards Hamas and rewards terrorists. And we literally had a situation yesterday where Hamas formally put out a statement praising Starmer, welcoming his announcement, saying it was a victory for them, and victory was much closer than even they had thought. And then a few hours later, you've got a statement from the hostage families saying this policy is actively risks putting the lives of our relatives at risk.
Yeah.
I mean,
and they said it was a moral failure as well.
Well, firstly, it's obviously a moral failure. Secondly, it's a political failure because, again, Starmer is getting criticism from all sides. I mean, if you see the reaction to the announcement, even people on the left who are pro-Palestinian are attacking the even
Sadiq Khan said it was a bad idea.
Exactly. People, relatively moderate people on the left, like Sadiq Khan, are attacking it from that flank. I mean, incredibly, I was told yesterday by a minister that the Israeli government weren't even informed of the move. Remember, this is one of our key strategic allies. They weren't even informed of the move until Keir Starmer stood up. And as I say in the piece today, he wrote an article, I think it was in the Times it was either Thursday or Friday, in which he broadly set out the principles around recognition, but that was widely perceived as being a relatively balanced piece, and was balanced between requirements on the Israelis and requirements on Hamas. But then over the weekend, my understanding is he was basically ambushed by his cabinet ministers who said, no, we've got to go much further and we've got to go much farther on this, which is, and once again, it's the pattern we keep seeing with him. You know, Keir Starmer is frankly not in control of the government. His MPs, members of the cabinet, and outside events are governing government policy at the moment.
Absolutely right. And of course, you know, I've been saying this since the beginning of this week, that, you know, it all kind of started last weekend when he started tweeting about Gaza, and he started talking about, you know, how terrible the famine was, and he started getting stuck into all of that. And then all of the sort of unrest happened, the protests out in Epping were going on. There was trouble at Canary Wharf. There was Britannia Hotel being taken over. You know, he didn't address any of that on his social media feed, which is usually a pretty good indicator of where he's wanting to spend his time. He then sort of got stuck into the Lionesses over the weekend and was full of praise for them on the Sunday. And then we had the whole Trump escapade, which was one of the most embarrassing outpourings, I think, from any Prime Minister I've ever seen, where he's had to sit there and be humiliated by the 47th President of the United States of America. And it was so humiliating that he did one tweet about his time with Donald Trump, which I still find extraordinary given what else he puts out. You know what I mean?
I mean, you touched on a very serious point there, and you touched on it, you know, at the top of the programme. I mean, I was down in Epping last week, and as you've seen, there are very, very, very serious social tensions building up in this country now over a wide range of issues, but obviously most dangerously over this issue of the asylum seekers and housing of asylum seekers. And this is a very, very real danger. And obviously Nigel Farage spoke about it last week, was attacked for it, but then Angela Rayner herself stood up in cabinet and basically said, no, there are serious tensions brewing here, and we've got to get on top of it. But once again, what have the British people seen their Prime Minister doing? As you said, he's stuck. As these tensions are literally developing in front of our eyes, and these protests are developing in front of our eyes, what's his priority been? It's been to, as you say, first start talking about the crisis in Gaza. Then that rather bizarre, again, as you say, that sort of bizarre couple of days with Donald Trump, where, frankly, he appeared to simply be helping Donald Trump open a golf course.
Right. Well, it was like he was visiting Donald Trump.
It's like he was
in his country.
It was like he was visiting Donald Trump. Now we've got this again, this complete, just total catastrophe over the announcement of Palestinian recognition, which has pleased no one, and obviously had generate this huge backlash. Most importantly, from the British families of hostages being held out there.
And this morning, like senior lawyers who are supposed to be
senior lawyers saying it's
probably illegal.
It's probably illegal. But the key thing is we've been talking about this for a lot. This idea about Keir Starmer's, you know, just focus on international affairs, never hear Keir. I do think that is now becoming a very, very serious and legitimate criticism of it. Obviously, we understand there are all sorts of major international issues going on that the Prime Minister has to deal with. But he's Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He's not Secretary General of the United Nations.
No, exactly. And it's not his job to start ringing round, you know, to various different world leaders to see if they can all back him, which is what he appears to have been spending his last couple of days doing. I mean, he's just put out a tweet today, right? Because I try to keep an eye on, it's starting to dry up a bit. I only did one yesterday. Today's tweet is this, right? In the midst of all the things that you've just mentioned, we've been talking for about 10 minutes. He says this: too many small business owners spend hours chasing payments instead of doing what they do best, growing their businesses. It's unfair and it's holding Britain back. Our plan for change backs small businesses with the toughest crackdown on late payments in a generation. I mean, so what is all I would say to that. I run a small business and it's getting taxed up the wazoo, and a lot of people who employ other people, which I don't do much of, their business is costing them more money. That's what they're worried about. They're not worried about late payments that they need any help from the Prime Minister with.
But also yesterday we had a tweet from him in which he said there is a housing crisis in this country. I'm going to have to get to grips with it. Now, you remember last time I was on, we were talking about the fact that he popped up in front of the liaison committee and said, "Oh no, actually, we haven't got a housing crisis. We've got loads of spare housing, and we're about to put lots of asylum seekers in it." And again, this is what I'm talking about. What is his strategy? It's as we've said, the biggest single issue at the moment is facing the country are the growing tensions about the housing of asylum seekers and obviously the immigration issue. But what have we had? We've had one day Keir Starmer, "I'll help Donald Trump open his golf course." The next day it's, "I'll talk about housing." Then it's, in the midst of all this, "I'll talk about Gaza." And then now I'll talk about small businesses. Yeah. Oh, none of these things align.
No.
It's like he's frantically, desperately scrabbling around, trying to grab one issue here or one issue there, rather than actually sit down, focus on 2 or 3 priority issues and actually demonstrate he's serious about them and he's serious about getting on top of them. But at the moment, it's just everything is panicked.
Yeah, and
everything is done in a form of panic.
Exactly. And I spoke to one of the mothers down at the Epping dispute protest last week, and I said to her, "If you've got a message for Keir Starmer, what is it?" And she said, "Just come and see us. Come down, talk to us, understand why we're concerned about this and why we think that, housing these migrants in a place that's a bit near a school where there's already been somebody arrested for a sex attack, why we are not happy about it, and just try and understand how we feel." Both to a message to him and to Yvette Cooper. And this is what he doesn't seem to be any good at. He doesn't seem to understand how you get to feel how ordinary people feel.
But I remember you saying that last week, and I as I said, I went down and I spoke to a number of the residents there and got exactly the same message.
Yeah.
Obviously we've had all this stuff about people on both the hard left and the hard right are trying to exploit these issues for their own political purposes and generating trouble and causing disorder. And that's absolutely right. There is obviously an element about that. But one of the problems is they're able to do that because a vacuum is being created by the mainstream politicians. So I was saying to people down there, have you seen or heard anything from the Prime Minister? Have you seen or heard anything from the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, who was warning the Cabinet about these issues? Yeah. Have you seen anything from any senior ministers? And the answer was no. I mean, in Epping, obviously you've had the protests outside the hotel. When I was down there, there were rumours going around. The men who were in the hotel had been moved out, had been sent to Canary Wharf. The men haven't been moved out. I asked a local councillor down there, "What information are you getting from the government?" And they were saying the Home Office aren't telling us. Right. The Home Office are literally not even telling them how the hotel is being used.
Right.
Now, that's insane.
I know. Well, the Home Office apparently didn't even tell them when they were going to make it into a migrant hotel. They've now written, the local council have now written again to Yvette Cooper to say, "We really think you should close this hotel down." But they were never given any information at all about the fact that it was even opening up for migrants.
No, exactly. And the point is that the people in Epping have been campaigning and basically pleading with the Home Office and the governments of both political persuasions, for over 5 years, because this has been going on for 5 years in it. Yeah. Not to base people in that base asylum seekers in that hotel. Now, initially when they were put in, this is one of the problems. Initially when they were put in, it was a mixed group of asylum seekers and it was families. They were then moved out and the hotel was closed down, and people in Epping thought finally the situation's been resolved. Then again, without any consultation with them or even informing them, it was reopened. But this time it was exclusively young men who were put in there, which has led to all the issues that we've seen. And I was having this argument, I wrote about this on Sunday, and I had, the classic thing from people saying, "Oh, this is all being stoked up by the press." And And I was saying, do people honestly think that, the people we're seeing in these pictures, that they are reacting solely to things that the people like me write, rather than actually what, to use that phrase, their lived experience is? They're reacting to what is actually happening in communities, and their concerns have to be addressed. They've got to be addressed because, as you've seen, the situation is not getting better. You know, we had the Prime Minister, as I said, sort of breezily saying, "Oh, there's not a problem. We've got all this housing. Don't worry. We're going to move them out of the hotels and put them into this housing." We're seeing time and time again across the country these demonstrations spreading, and something is going to have to be done about it, or at least people's concern. People in these communities have to get the impression that senior politicians like Keir Starmer are listening to their concern, not simply running around worrying about what the hell is happening in Gaza.
Exactly right. And he's going to have to make it this weekend, because there's going to be loads, from what I'm talking to people about, there's going to be loads more of these protests all weekend long, some on Friday, some on Saturday, probably some on Sunday as well. He's going to be forced into it, and like everything that he gets forced into, it'll be a knee-jerk reaction, it'll be the wrong reaction, he'll say the wrong thing, and he'll mess it up.
But again, yeah, exactly. The point is, it will be reactive. We all know that if there is, God forbid, if there's some sort of serious issue or some serious disorder, then Keir Starmer will appear at the podium, and he will, he'll give a strong speech demanding law and order, backing the police, and attacking those who create disorder. And rightly, there is no excuse for disorder, and people in these communities are, as again speaking to them, they don't want disorder. They don't want these people coming down, hijacking this issue, and beating up the police in their streets. Nobody wants this. But the Prime Minister again has to get out in front. What was the one time? I think I can recall one major speech from Keir Starmer on this issue, or broadly around this issue, on the issue of immigration, which is when obviously he famously stood up, gave the speech. A lot of people criticised him for his use of language, but remember, he famously said, "We have to do something about this, because Britain is, for a lot of people, Britain is becoming an island of strangers." And then what happened? 5 weeks later, he turned round, did this emotional interview with his mate Tom Baldwin, and said, "I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have done it. I didn't even read the speech. I shouldn't have actually said that." That's the only intervention we've had from Keir Starmer on this issue.
Yeah, I know, and that was just an absolute disaster as well. Almost as if he didn't know it was going out to the actual public, that we were going to read it. Listen, good to talk to you, Dan. We keep this up. We're going to give you a show soon, I think, the way things are going.
No, I'll leave that to you. I'll leave that to the professionals.
See you later. Thanks very much indeed. Dan Hodges, commentator from the Mail on Sunday.